The rain pelted my back as I hurriedly walked up to my school. Thunder clapped in the distance as I finally entered the vestibule with the lights flickering. Chatter filled the halls as I made my way to my locker. My name is Jackson. I'm a sophomore at Ridgewood High School. My school isn't huge, but it isn't small either. Everyone knows each other, but we're not all friends, if that makes any sense. I noticed a short girl at the locker next to mine. That locker had always been empty. A new student, perhaps, or did someone's locker get switched? As I got closer, I realized that I had never seen this girl before. She was short and thin, with long, tangled hair cascading down her back. She wore a chestnut brown oversized hoodie, black leggings, and black boots. "Hi, are you new here? I don't think we've met before," I said with a smile. "Yeah, my name is Beverly," she said while trying to open her locker. Her fingernails caked in dirt had caught my attention, but I kept my thoughts to myself as I knew better than to comment on looks. "Do you know where room 203 is?" she asked. "Yes, actually, that's where I was about to head. Biology first period with Mr. Grant." She nodded her head slowly. I took a better look at her. Her face was fully covered in makeup. Her hazel eyes had a yellowish tint to them, and her lips were extremely chapped. Perhaps she comes from a poor family. I showed her the way to our first class of the day, and we discussed her schedule, which to my amazement was very similar to mine. As we took our seats, class began at the sound of the bell. Almost halfway through the period, I noticed something. Beverly seemed to have not been acknowledged by anyone but me this entire time. Even the teachers did not seem to notice her existence. Maybe I was just looking into it too deeply, but something felt off. Must be the weather, I suppose. Beverly and I shared the same lunch period, so I offered to sit with her at lunch, to which she accepted. I wasn't popular at school, but I wasn't a nobody either. I knew people, and people knew me. I didn't have any friends either, as the ones I did have either had different lunch periods or weren't in school today. "If you don't mind me asking, where do you live?" I asked as I took a bite of my ham sandwich. She took a second to respond, but eventually replied, "I live at the corner of Maple and Greenstone." I tried to think of that area, but I wasn't too familiar with streets north of the school. We had a project for English, and we decided to be partners. "Did you want to come to my place to work on the project after school? I live right down the road." "I can't," she said quickly and looked away. "Could we go to a park maybe?" Her response confused me, but I agreed, and our plans were made. The bell rang at 2 o'clock, and she followed me out the doors into the drizzling rain. "Are you sure you don't want to come to my place, or even go to your place? It's a bit wet outside," I asked. We agreed on the park," Beverly said firmly. For winter in New York, the weather was fairly comfortable at 45 degrees Fahrenheit. The park benches squeaked as we both sat down. I put down my sweatshirt on top of the table to prevent our papers from getting wet. I looked over to Beverly and saw her covering up her face with even more makeup. "You know, you don't need that much makeup," I joked. She stared at me with narrowed eyes and continued applying a peach-colored liquid to her face, roughly the tone of her skin. Eventually, we got to work on our project. It consisted of me doing all the work while she fidgeted and stared off into space. It didn't bother me much because I was used to always doing all the work for group projects, but I was hoping to get to know more about her. Before I knew it, the little bit of sun that was out had set, leaving us, or rather myself, working under the light of a dim streetlight. "I think this is good for today," I said, while packing my notebooks into my backpack. She nodded her head and picked up her worn-out backpack. It caught my attention that she didn't even have any books or anything in her bag at all. I get it, the first day at a new school and all, but she didn't eat or drink anything with me the majority of the day either. I can walk you home if you'd like, I smiled. Number. You can't, she said with a stern look on her face. Are you sure? It's dark out, and I want to make sure you get home okay. No, I'll walk home by myself. I assumed she was just being safe considering she barely knew me and just met me today. Fair enough, I suppose. I'm practically a stranger to her. We said our goodbyes and headed in opposite directions. As I began walking, curiosity had gotten the best of me. I wanted to know where she lived, but also wanted to make sure she got home safely, since there has been an increase in crime in the area lately. I kept my distance from her and followed her for about 15 minutes, taking multiple turns through an area I was completely unfamiliar with. I checked my phone and luckily I had enough battery to use the map app to find my way home. Wait, Beverly didn't use her phone today. I never saw her with one, and it didn't seem like she brought it with her. Maybe her family couldn't afford one. Still, even now in 2021, it is odd for one to not have some type of smartphone. Maybe I never saw her use it. Beverly started running, and that caught my attention. I picked up the pace while also keeping my footsteps light so she wouldn't hear me. She slowed down under a street lamp and looked around her with watchful eyes. I ducked behind a tree so she wouldn't catch me. I took this time to take in the area around me. Right in front of where she stood was a cemetery I had never seen in my 16 years of life. She quickly hopped the fence and made her way down the dirt path. I followed her, being sure to avoid sticks and puddles that may make a sound. I had accidentally lost track of her in the darkness. Surprisingly, there were no lights in the cemetery at all, which made it even more spooky. Just then, I saw a figure kneeling in front of a grave, digging in the dirt. "What the f—" I whispered to myself. As I got closer, the figure was no longer there. Was my mind playing tricks on me? Where had Beverly gone? I was curious as to what that figure was doing in front of that grave, so I slowly made my way towards it. It was a fairly normal grave. Mother Nature had weathered down the gravestone a bit, and vines cuddled it. The dirt appeared completely untouched, which made me feel even more uneasy than I already was. My heart nearly stopped as I read the name engraved into the stone. Our beloved daughter, Beverly M. Keating, 2005 to 2021. You are always in our hearts and thoughts. You were taken from us far too soon. We love you always. I took a step back, almost tripping on a gravestone behind me. My eyes caught a glimpse of a picture frame nestled in the dirt in front of the grave. It was a picture of an older man, a woman, a young girl, and a baby boy. The young girl looked like a younger version of Beverly. I couldn't believe what I was seeing right now. This must be a dream. Beverly spent almost the whole day with me. She talked to me. "Beverly?" I called out into the night. Only the crickets and the whistling of the wind responded. The air got even colder, so I turned to head home. Just as I turned around, a faint whisper came from behind me. "I told you not to take me home." I'm a first-grade teacher, and I'm facing a situation that's left me unsettled. I recently class an assignment to write a short essay about what their parents do for a living. It's usually a fun exercise with kids talking about their parents being doctors, firefighters, construction workers, etc. But this time, I received an essay from one of my students that has me genuinely worried. Let's call him Timmy. A bit of context. This boy is somewhat of an enigma. He's the only student in my class whose parents have never shown up for any school events or parent-teacher conferences. Whenever I've asked about his family, he clams up and refuses to give me any details about his father's name or their address. It's odd, but I never press too hard, thinking there might be personal issues at play. Anyway, here's the essay he handed in. Keep in mind that it's written by a first grader, so the language is simple and innocent among the content. Well, read for yourself. My Dad's Job by Timmy. My dad has a cool job. He helps people sleep. It's super important because Eve Firebirds sleep to feel good and strong. My dad is very good at his job, and he works at night when it's very quiet. He says that people are living in his head who tell him what to do and that they know best. They say that people don't sleep enough and that somebody should help people fall asleep. My dad has lots of shiny tools that he uses for his job. Some of them are sharp, like the ones we see in the kitchen, but they are special because they help him do his job the time he has big shiny knives and pointy things, and sometimes he uses ropes. He made them all very clean and shiny, and in ink they look cool. Dad has a special room where he does his job. It has drawers and tables for the tools and a special chair where the people he helps have to sit down. It has special belts that help them keep still. He says that it helps them fall to L asleep faster. Third degree helps people sleep faster. Sometimes there is a lot of red juice. He says it's the same kind of red juice as the one that comes out of my knee when I fall from my bike. I don't know why there is so much red juice, but my dad says it's normal and that it means he is doing a good job. The red juice can get everywhere, and it's a little messy, but my dad always cleans up well. He doesn't like to leave any mess behind. He even has a special white suit and mask to stop the juice from getting on his clothes. Sometimes people don't want to sleep and they scream and cry, like my little sister who has an earlier bedtime than me, but always wants to stay up later. My dad says they are just scared because they don't know how much better they will feel after they sleep. He tries to help them calm down, but it can be hard. My dad is very patient and tries his best to help everyone. He told me that he puts them in black bags and puts them underground to help them sleep better. He regularly drives very far to find a quiet place and digs deep holes there to put the people in black bags. I think that's very kind of him because it means they can sleep without any noise or disturbances. My dad also plays games with the police. It sounds like a lot of fun. He calls it hide and seek. The police try to find him, but he is very good at hiding. He hides so well that the police can't catch him. My dad says the detectives have a lot of fun trying to find him, and he likes to send them funny letters to keep the game going. He even sends letters to the newspapers to make people laugh. One time, my dad showed me a letter he sent to a newspaper. It had lots of funny pictures and words, and I think it made a lot of people smile. He is very good at drawing and writing, and he always makes his letters very interesting. My dad says he's not allowed to use his real name for his job. It's part of the game's rules and makes it more fun. He uses a special secret nickname to sign his letters. My dad's job is really exciting, and I'm proud of him. He works very hard to help people sleep and make sure they are comfortable. Even though some people might be scared, my dad always knows what to do. He is the best at playing hide and seek with the police and making everyone laugh with his letters. Last week he told me that the police had to make the rules harder because he's so good at the game. The police told people through the newspaper that they weren't allowed to walk alone at night and should call 911 when they saw him. I think it's cheating and unfair, but he says that it just makes the game more fun. I love my dad and think he has the best job ever. He is always there to help people when they need to sleep and make sure everything is just right. I want to be just like him when I grow up and help people too. Should I contact the authorities or am I overreacting? I'm genuinely at a loss here and could use some advice. I'm seriously worried about the boy, and I can't think of any normal job that fits this description. But it could also be just a very vivid imagination. Thanks for reading and any guidance you can offer. The scars have faded with the passage of years and clever plastic surgery. With proper makeup and lighting, you can barely tell they're there. But in the full direct light of my bedroom, I can see them clearly in the mirror, spread across my face and body, bumpy and crimson and just plain weird. I am the lucky one who survived that horrific school fire. Or maybe the creature remembered that it was I, after all, who saved it from the nasty, muddy wetness that was dragging it down, and a possible horrible death from being stomped by some random kid, and somehow engineered my escape. I don't know. I was unconscious from the smoke at the time. Oh yes, I still have permanent lung damage, wheezing like an 80-year-old if I even slightly exert myself. Let me tell you the story from the beginning, and you can decide. It began on a gleaming wet fall morning over 20 years ago as I walked miserably to school. There was no real reason I was miserable. I hated school with a passion that made my heart ache. But there was no reason. I wasn't bullied. I had some friends, and my grades were fine. I didn't have the words to explain the loathing I felt for the building, the smell, the sounds, the actions, and so I didn't try. Everyone else seemed cheerful enough. It had rained heavily overnight, but now the sun was shining, making the puddles gorgeously dazzle. Kids jumped noisily into the puddles, shrieking with excitement. I skirted them carefully, and that's when I saw it, almost completely buried in a pile of soggy leaves, tinted with all the hues of late autumn. Only its head was poking out, its eyes shining right at me, a damp puff of smoke hanging around its delicate snout. Instinctively, I knelt and scooped it up in my arms. It was as big as a pigeon. It flapped its wings irritably. Its mouth opened, and I heard it right in my brain, very clearly. I did not give you permission to pick me up. I was not in the mood to take shit from a telepathic pigeon-sized creature. A gaggle of loud, smaller children passed by, hooting, stomping around in big rubbery gleaming wellies, and jumping aggressively in the puddles and the pile of leaves, scattering them everywhere. I said, "Would you like me to put you back down on the pavement?" The wet creature clearly couldn't fly, nor could it breathe fire. It contented itself by glaring angrily at me from its orange-red eyes. I said, "Why don't you spend the day at our place? I'll keep you safe. Once you're dry, you can fly off. I'm not going to try and imprison you." It thought for a moment. "And what do you want in return?" The words came out by themselves. I swear I have no conscious recollection of forming them. "Burn the school down, please." It nodded solemnly. I ran home and carefully laid the creature on my bed, where I knew it would be undisturbed for the rest of the day. I still blame myself for not specifying the time it should burn the school down. But then, how could I have predicted the exact moment that it would be ready to breathe flames and fly? I had left it that next morning looking still quite miserable and ill, with no apparent desire to leave my room. How could I have known that around 10 a.m. it would take wing and soar out of my room? The first I heard of it was during the second period. Kaylee pointed out of the window and exclaimed, "Firebird!" "Dragon!" I turned to look and glimpsed the creature swooping around the building, followed by a plume of silvery gray smoke. I still had no idea what it was planning to do then. Poor Kaylee. She was a special needs kid. I still see her curious round blue eyes, wondering at the universe, chewing her hair, in my dreams, my nightmares. The teacher said, "Eyes ahead, everyone." Those were the last normal words I heard. The fire alarms went off almost at the same time I saw the flames and heard the crackles. And then the screaming began and the heat slammed into me. I had no idea how thoroughly such a creature, even a small one the size of a pigeon, could burn things. I remember the smoke, the crashes, and the screams. And then, almost before the time I had time to feel fully afraid, I passed out. I revived in the hospital, with third-degree burns down my face and body. I was so lucky, I was told solemnly, the only survivor of that horrific school fire which no one ever figured out how it got started, except me.